His body went completely rigid in the chair. His eyes snapped open, but they weren't seeing the room. They were seeing something else. Something impossible. There's a council. A council of beings from different worlds, and they're watching Earth. They've always been watching. I was one of them. The session had started normally enough. He sat down, skeptical but curious. Arms crossed, guarded. He had come because his wife insisted, because the dreams wouldn't stop, because he kept having these moments where reality felt thin, like a screen he could almost see through. But the moment he closed his eyes and the guide began speaking, something shifted. His defensive posture melted. His breathing slowed to almost nothing. His face went blank, empty, like he had left his body and gone somewhere else, somewhere very far away. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, flatter, more formal, like he was translating from a language that had no emotion attached to it. I'm not in a body. I don't have form. I'm consciousness, pure awareness, observing. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. I observe. His head tilted slightly. And I'm not alone. There are many of us here, all observers, all witnesses, all gathered for the same purpose, to watch, to document, to understand what's happening on the planet below. The guide spoke carefully, sensing this was unlike other regressions. Where are you? What are you observing? He was silent for a long moment. When he answered, the words came slowly, deliberately. I'm in a chamber, but not a physical chamber, a dimensional space, a meeting place that exists between realities. The walls aren't walls, they're fields of energy, translucent, shimmering, and through them, I can see everything, all of time, all of space, all possibilities. His breathing remained eerily steady. There are others here with me, 12 of us. We form a circle, but it's not just a circle in 3 dimensions. It's a sphere. We're positioned around a central focal point, and at that center, suspended in the space between us, is a planet, blue and green and white, turning slowly, beautiful, fragile, Earth. A slight tension entered his voice. But we're not just looking at it, we're looking into it, seeing through the surface, seeing the life, the consciousness, the billions of souls living their lives, unaware that they're being observed, unaware that every choice they make is being recorded, witnessed, evaluated. His hands lifted slightly from his lap. And there's a feeling in this space, not emotion exactly, but purpose, weight, significance. What's happening on that planet matters, not just to the beings living there, but to all of us, to the entire galaxy, to creation itself. And that's why we're here. That's why we watch. That's why I'm part of this council. The guide kept her voice neutral. Tell me about this council, about who you are, about what you're doing. He took a breath that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the physical body. Then he began to speak, and the words flowed with strange precision. I am an observer. That's my designation, my function, my purpose across countless lifetimes and dimensions. I exist primarily as consciousness. I can take form when needed, can inhabit bodies for specific purposes. But my natural state is this: awareness without form, perception without limitation, understanding without the filter of physical senses. His voice remained emotionless. I am part of what you might call the Galactic Council. Though that's a simplification, a translation into human concepts that can't fully capture what we are. We're representatives. Each of us comes from a different star system, a different civilization, a different expression of conscious life, and we've been brought together for a specific purpose: to oversee the Earth experiment. He paused, his face showing concentration. Earth is not like other planets. It's a school, a laboratory, a place where souls come to experience something unique. Duality, separation, free will within limitation. Most civilizations in the galaxy evolved naturally, slowly, over millions of years. They developed technology, consciousness, wisdom, at a pace that kept them balanced. But Earth is different. Earth is accelerated, intense. Souls incarnate there and forget everything, forget where they came from, forget what they are, forget their connection to Source. And in that forgetting, they experience things that can't be experienced anywhere else. His breathing deepened slightly. And this experiment, it matters, because what's learned on Earth contributes to the evolution of all consciousness. Every breakthrough, every expansion, every soul that wakes up while in the density of human form, it creates ripples, affects the whole. That's why we watch, why we monitor, why we're invested in the outcome. He shifted slightly, but we don't interfere. That's crucial. That's the rule we all agreed to. Free will is sacred. The beings on Earth must be allowed to make their own choices, their own mistakes, their own discoveries. If we step in, if we save them from themselves, they don't learn. They don't grow. The experiment fails. So we watch. We document. We observe. But we don't act. Not directly. Not obviously. His voice took on more depth. I've been doing this for what you would call eons. I've watched Earth since the beginning, since the first souls incarnated there. I've seen civilizations rise and fall. I've seen great achievements and terrible destructions. I've seen patterns repeat, cycles turn, lessons learned and forgotten, and learned again. And through it all, I've remained here, in this council, bearing witness. He paused, settling deeper into the memory. Let me describe the chamber more clearly. It exists in what you might call the fifth dimension, maybe the sixth, dimensions where thought creates reality instantly, where consciousness can perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. The space itself is vast, infinite in some directions, contained in others, and it's alive. The chamber itself is conscious. It responds to our intentions, adjusts to our needs, creates the perfect environment for our work. His hands moved slightly. Each council member has a position in the sphere, and each position corresponds to their specialty, their area of focus. There's a being from the Pleiades who monitors emotional evolution. She tracks how humanity is learning to process and integrate feeling. There's a being from Arcturus who focuses on mental development, tracking intellectual growth, scientific advancement, philosophical understanding. There's a being from Sirius who watches technological progress, making sure it stays aligned with spiritual development, making sure humanity doesn't advance too quickly in one area while lagging in another. He spoke with increasing detail. And there are beings from systems you don't have names for, civilizations that have been spacefaring for millions of years, who have seen thousands of planets go through similar experiments, who bring wisdom earned through countless observations. They're the elders, the guides, the ones who help us interpret what we're seeing, help us understand the deeper patterns, the cosmic significance of even small events. His voice grew more animated. My specific role, as I mentioned, is individual soul tracking. I focus on incarnated beings who carry specific missions, but let me explain what that really means. Before souls incarnate on Earth, they go through a planning phase. They meet with guides, with their soul groups, with advisors, and they design their life, choose their parents, choose their challenges, choose the lessons they want to learn, choose the contributions they want to make. And some souls, some very advanced souls, they agree to particularly difficult missions. They agree to be catalysts, wave showers, pattern breakers, frequency holders. He paused for breath. These are the souls I track. I watch them from before they're born until after they die. I observe their entire arc, see if they remember their mission, see if they accomplish what they set out to do, see how they handle the challenges they chose, see how their choices affect others, see how their presence influences the collective consciousness. It's detailed work, intimate work. I get to know these souls deeply, watch them struggle, watch them triumph, watch them forget and remember and forget again. His expression showed something like fondness. I've been tracking some souls for hundreds of their lifetimes, watching them incarnate again and again, learning, growing, evolving, becoming more conscious with each cycle, and you develop a connection with them, even though they don't know you're watching, even though you can't communicate directly. You care about them, you root for them, you celebrate their victories and grieve their defeats. He shifted in the chair. The council meets in what you would call regular intervals, but as I said, time is fluid where we exist. From the Earth's perspective, we might meet once a month. From our perspective, we're almost constantly connected. The chamber exists outside of linear time. So, in a sense, we're always meeting, always observing, always present. But there are specific gatherings where we come together with more focus, more intention, to review major events, to discuss patterns, to make decisions about how to proceed. His voice grew more formal. These gatherings follow a protocol, an ancient protocol that's been used for millions of years across countless civilizations. First, we connect. We merge our individual consciousnesses into a unified field. This allows us to share information instantly, to see through each other's perspectives, to achieve a level of understanding that would be impossible if we remained separate. It's like becoming one being with 12 different viewpoints, all information available to all members simultaneously. He paused, searching for words. Then, we review. We examine the time period since the last gathering. We watch key events play out, not just the big obvious things like wars or natural disasters, but subtle shifts, changes in collective consciousness, moments where individuals made choices that will ripple forward through time. We see it all. The butterfly effects, the cascade of consequences, the web of interconnection that links every action to every outcome. His breathing steadied, and as we watch, we discuss. Not with words, with direct transmission of understanding. One member might highlight something they noticed, a pattern, a concern, an opportunity, and immediately, all of us see it, examine it from our different perspectives, contribute our insights. It's fast, efficient, complete, no misunderstanding, no miscommunication. Just pure transfer of consciousness. He spoke more slowly now. But this current cycle, this time period you're living in now, it's different. It's critical. Earth is at a crossroads, a pivotal point. The choices being made now will determine whether the experiment continues or ends, whether humanity evolves to the next level or destroys itself and has to start over. And we're watching more closely than ever, because the stakes have never been higher. His hands clenched slightly. There are signs, warning signs. Humanity is developing technology faster than wisdom, creating powers they don't have the consciousness to wield responsibly. Nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, environmental destruction. Each of these could end the experiment prematurely, could wipe out the life forms before the lessons are learned, before the consciousness evolves. And we're watching, calculating probabilities, assessing risks, hoping humanity will choose wisely. His voice grew urgent. But there are also hopeful signs. More souls waking up. More people questioning the old paradigms. More individuals remembering their connection to Source. More communities forming around higher consciousness. More light breaking through the darkness. And these signs, they balance the warning signs. They create attention, a possibility, a chance that humanity might actually make it this time, might actually graduate, might actually ascend to the next level. He paused, emotion finally breaking through. And I've wanted to do more. So many times, I've wanted to intervene, wanted to stop wars, prevent disasters, save innocent lives. But that's not allowed. That's not my role. I'm an observer, a witness, not a savior, not a god, just a consciousness from another world, who agreed to watch, to learn, to hold the bigger perspective while humanity learns through experience. His voice grew heavy. Do you know what it's like to watch suffering and not be able to stop it? To see a child die and know you could prevent it but aren't allowed? To watch people make choices that will lead to their destruction and not be able to warn them? It's agony. Even for a consciousness like mine that doesn't feel emotion the way humans do. There's a recognition of tragedy, of loss, of potential unrealized. And you carry it, you hold it, you witness it, and you trust the process. Trust that even the suffering serves. Even the pain teaches, even the tragedies contribute to the eventual evolution. He took several shaky breaths, but then something changed. Something that's never happened before. In all my time on the council, about 60 Earth years ago, there was a special gathering, an emergency session. The elders called us together and presented a situation. They said Earth was approaching a critical window, that the next 5,200 years would determine everything. That the experiment was at its most dangerous and most promising point simultaneously. And they said observation alone would no longer be enough. His voice grew more intense. They proposed a new protocol, a controversial protocol. They wanted to send council members down, to incarnate them as humans, to have them work from the inside, to be guides and teachers and frequency holders embedded in the population, to help tip the scales toward awakening rather than destruction. But this had never been done before. Council members never incarnate. We observe. That's our function. That's our agreement. Incarnating would change everything. He paused. There were long discussions, debates, concerns. Would council members who incarnated remember who they were? Would they get lost in the human experience? Would they be effective, or would they just add to the chaos? Could they handle the density, the limitation, the suffering? And most importantly, would their presence violate the free will principle? Would it count as interference? His hands moved expressively. Eventually, they decided it wouldn't count as interference if the incarnated council members forgot, if they went through the normal process of birth, forgetting, growing up human, if they had to work to remember just like any other soul, if their only advantage was their vast experience at the soul level, not their conscious knowledge. That way, free will remained intact. They would be influencing from within, but unconsciously, naturally, as a result of who they were, not what they knew. His voice dropped, and they asked for volunteers, asked if any council members would be willing to leave their positions, leave the safety of observation, take on human bodies, experience limitation, suffer, struggle, potentially get lost, all for the chance to help from within, to be part of the solution instead of just watching the problem. And it was completely voluntary, no pressure, no judgment for those who said no, because it was asking a lot. It was asking for a sacrifice that might not succeed, a mission that might fail. He took a deep breath. The council approached me, told me Earth needed more than observation, needed help from within, needed beings who understood the bigger picture to incarnate, to go down there, to live as humans, to work from the inside, to be anchors of higher consciousness, guides, teachers, reminders. And they asked if I would volunteer, if I would leave the council, leave the observer role, take on a body, forget everything, live a full human life, with all the pain and limitation and challenge that comes with it, all for the chance to help from within. Tears began to form behind his closed eyes, and I said yes. Of course I said yes. After watching for so long, after seeing so much suffering, after feeling helpless to do anything but witness, I jumped at the chance. I volunteered. I agreed to incarnate during this critical time, this turning point, this moment when humanity either wakes up or falls back asleep. I agreed to forget, to struggle, to search, to potentially fail, all for the possibility of making a difference. His voice broke, and the preparation was intense. They had to prepare my consciousness for compression, for limitation, for entering the density of physical form. It's like taking an ocean and fitting it into a cup, like taking infinite awareness and squeezing it into a single point of view, like taking multidimensional perception and flattening it into 3 dimensions. The process itself is traumatic, painful in a way that transcends physical pain. He sobbed, but I agreed to it, went through it, allowed myself to be compressed, condensed, folded, reduced, and then came the descent, the actual incarnation. I remember hovering over the earth, seeing the life I was about to enter, the parents who had agreed to bring me in, the challenges I would face, the mission I would attempt, and feeling both excitement and terror, knowing I was about to forget everything, about to become small, about to experience limitation for the first time in my existence. His whole body trembled, and then I descended, entered the forming fetus, began the process of becoming human, and the forgetting started immediately, layer after layer of amnesia, like veils dropping between me and my true self, until finally, I was born, and I was just a human baby, crying, vulnerable, completely lost, with only the faintest echo of my true identity buried deep in my subconscious, so deep I couldn't access it, couldn't remember, could only feel this vague sense of not belonging, of being different, of waiting for something I couldn't name. He took several breaths to steady himself, and I did forget, completely, for decades. I've lived this human life with no memory of the council, no memory of being an observer, no memory of my true identity, just this vague feeling of not belonging, of being different, of carrying some unnamed responsibility, some purpose I couldn't quite grasp. And it's been hard, so hard, living in the density, feeling the weight, the limitation, the separation, wondering why nothing feels quite right, why I always feel like I'm waiting for something, looking for something, searching for something I can't name. His whole body began to shake violently. When he spoke, his voice was raw with emotion that seemed to come from multiple lifetimes, and I can see it now. I can see my whole life from the council perspective. Every struggle, every challenge, every moment of feeling alone, or different, or misunderstood. It was all part of the plan. All part of what I agreed to experience, because I needed to understand humanity from the inside, needed to feel what they feel, know what they know, struggle with what they struggle with. Otherwise, how could I help? How could I guide? How could I be a bridge between worlds if I only understood one side? His hands pressed hard against his chest, and I see the loneliness, the deep, crushing loneliness I've felt my entire life, even surrounded by people, even in relationships, even in moments of joy. There's always been this ache, this emptiness, this sense of being fundamentally alone in a way I couldn't explain, and now I understand. It's because I am alone. I'm a galactic consciousness in a human body. I'm an observer, forced to participate. I'm someone who remembers multidimensional existence, trying to function in 3 dimensions. Of course I'm lonely. Of course I don't fit. Of course nothing feels quite right. Tears poured down his face. And I see why I've struggled with emotion. Why I've been called cold, detached, unfeeling. Why I analyze instead of feel. Why I watch instead of engage. Why I can't seem to connect the way others connect. It's because I am an observer. That's my nature, my training, my identity across eons. And putting that into a human body that's designed to feel, it creates conflict, friction, a constant war between my natural state of detachment and my human need for connection. His voice rose with anguish. And the relationships I've destroyed. The people I've hurt by not being able to fully be there. By always having one foot out the door. By never fully committing. By watching them love me while I analyzed their love instead of feeling it. I've caused so much pain, not because I'm bad, not because I'm broken, but because I'm trying to be human when my core identity is something else entirely, and I didn't know, didn't understand. Just kept trying harder, and failing harder, and hating myself more. He sobbed freely. And I see the other volunteers too, the other council members who incarnate, were scattered across the planet, different countries, different backgrounds, different roles, but all carrying the same basic mission. To anchor higher consciousness, to remember and help others remember, to be living examples of what's possible. And most of us forgot, just like I did. Most of us are wandering around feeling different and isolated and purposeless, but we're not. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, doing exactly what we came to do, even when we don't consciously remember. His voice cracked completely. And I understand my depression now. The deep, existential depression that no medication could touch, no therapy could heal, because it wasn't chemical, it wasn't psychological, it was spiritual. It was the homesickness of a galactic being trapped in a human body. It was the grief of remembering infinity and being confined to limitation. It was the despair of watching humanity suffer and being unable to help because I'd forgotten who I was, forgotten my mission, forgotten my power. He opened his eyes suddenly, staring beyond the physical. But now I remember. Now I understand. I'm not just a human. I'm an observer who became human. I'm a council member who descended. I'm a galactic consciousness experiencing life as a limited being. And I came here on purpose. With a mission. With an agreement. With a promise to help. And I've been so lost. So confused. So disconnected from who I really am. But now, finally, I remember. His face transformed with intensity. And I see why this moment matters, why I'm being allowed to remember now. It's because my mission is entering a new phase. The observation phase is over. The forgetting phase is over. Now comes the remembering phase, the activation phase. The phase where I consciously step into my role, where I stop wandering and start working, where I use everything I've learned, everything I've experienced, everything I've become, to help others wake up, to help humanity remember. To be the bridge I came here to be. His voice filled with determination. And I'm not special. That's important to understand. I'm not superior. I'm not more important. I'm just different. I have a different origin, a different purpose, a different perspective. But every human soul is equally valuable, equally necessary, equally important to the great experiment. Some came from the stars. Some came from other dimensions. Some are native Earth souls. But we're all here together, all playing our parts, all contributing to the evolution of consciousness. The guide spoke with compassion. Take some deep breaths. Begin to bring your awareness back to this room, this time, this body. You can keep all the knowing, all the understanding, all the memory, but ground it here, in this human experience, in this present moment. He breathed deeply several times, each breath seeming to anchor him more firmly in the physical. His face gradually softened. The otherworldly quality faded. He became more human again, more present. but his eyes held a depth they hadn't held before, a knowing that couldn't be unknown. "I'm back," he whispered. "But everything is different." The guide waited. "What do you understand now?" He looked at his hands, really seeing them for the first time. "I understand why I've felt like an outsider my whole life. Why I've struggled to care about normal human things. Jobs, money, status, entertainment. They all feel so meaningless when you remember observing civilizations rise and fall. When you remember existing beyond time. When you remember that this physical reality is just one tiny sliver of infinite creation." His voice grew stronger. "But I also understand that this perspective is both a gift and a challenge. The gift is clarity, understanding, the bigger picture. But the challenge is staying engaged, staying connected, staying present. Because it's so easy to detach, to observe, to disconnect from human concerns. But that's not why I came here. I came to help. And I can only help if I stay engaged, stay connected, stay human while remembering I'm more than human." He sat up straighter. "And I understand my relationships now, why I've always kept people at a distance, why I've struggled with intimacy. It's because intimacy requires vulnerability, requires letting go of the observer stance, requires being fully present in the messy, complicated, emotional human experience. And that's scary when you're used to watching from outside, when you're used to being objective, detached, safe." The guide nodded. "How will you live differently now?" A genuine smile crossed his face. "I'll embrace the mission, consciously. Instead of wandering and wondering, I'll step into my purpose. I'll use my observer abilities to help others see their patterns, their blocks, their possibilities. I'll use my galactic perspective to remind people they're more than they think they are, more than their stories, more than their limitations. I'll be a bridge, a translator, a guide. That's what I came here to do." His voice filled with emotion. "And I'll forgive myself for all the years of feeling lost, for all the times I judged myself as cold or disconnected or wrong. I wasn't wrong. I was just remembering something I couldn't consciously access. My soul was trying to tell me I'm an observer, that I see things differently. And instead of accepting that, I tried to force myself to be more human, more normal, more like everyone else. But that was never the point. The point was to be exactly who I am. An observer learning to be human, a galactic consciousness experiencing limitation, a volunteer who came to help." He paused, wonder crossing his face. "And I'll look for the others, the other volunteers, the other council members, who incarnated because we're supposed to find each other, support each other, work together. We have different roles but the same basic mission. And together, we're more effective, more powerful, more able to create the shift that humanity needs." His expression grew thoughtful. "But I'll also honor my human experience. Honor this body, this life, these relationships, these challenges. Because they're not obstacles to my mission. They are the mission. Every human experience I have makes me a better bridge. Every struggle I face helps me understand what others face. Every moment of being present in limitation expands my consciousness in ways that were impossible as pure awareness." The guide smiled. "What about the council? Will you connect with them again?" His eyes brightened with recognition. "I already am. Now that I remember, the connection is reestablished. I can feel them, not constantly, but in meditation, in dreams, in those quiet moments between worlds. They're still there, still observing, still holding space, and I'm still part of the council, just in a different role now. I'm the one who went down, who immersed, who took on the full human experience. And everything I learn, everything I experience, I'm feeding back to them, helping them understand humanity from the inside, giving them data they could never get from observation alone." He took a deep breath, integrating it all. "And eventually, when this life ends, when this body dies, I'll return. I'll go back to the council, and I'll share everything, everything I learned, everything I felt, everything I became, and it will inform their understanding, their decisions, their next moves, my sacrifice. This incarnation, it will have been worth it, not just for what I accomplished on Earth, but for what I brought back to the council." His voice grew passionate. "And I want people to know they're being watched. Not in a creepy way, not in a controlling way, but in a loving way. There are beings out there, beings from other worlds, who care about humanity, who want you to succeed, who are holding space for your evolution, who are cheering you on. You're not alone. You've never been alone. And the struggles you're facing, they matter. They're being witnessed. They're contributing to something much bigger than you realize. He paused, his face showing deep gratitude. And I want to thank my human parents. They agreed to this, agreed to bring in a soul that was different, that would be challenging to raise, that would never quite fit. And they did their best. Loved me, even when I was difficult to love, even when I was distant and analytical and strange. They fulfilled their part of the agreement, and I'm grateful. His voice softened. And I want to thank everyone who's been part of my journey. The friends who tried to connect even when I pushed them away. The partners who loved me even when I couldn't fully love them back. The teachers who saw something in me even when I couldn't see it myself. They were all playing their roles, all contributing to my growth, all helping me learn what I came here to learn. The guide leaned back. Is there anything else you need to integrate? He was quiet for a long moment, going deep inside. Then he shook his head, tears of gratitude flowing. Just thank you. Thank you to the council for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for trusting me with this mission. Thank you to my guide who's been with me even when I didn't know it. Thank you to this process, this regression, for helping me remember, for giving me back my identity, for showing me why I'm here. I came in confused. I'm leaving with purpose. And that changes everything. He stood slowly, testing his balance, finding the middle ground between his galactic nature and his human form. I'm an observer who became human, and now I'm a human who remembers being an observer. And I'm going to use both perspectives, honor both roles, be both things simultaneously. That's what I came here to do. That's my gift to humanity. And I'm finally ready to give it. He looked ahead with clear, knowing eyes that seemed to see beyond the physical realm, into dimensions most people couldn't perceive. If you're listening to this, and something shifted inside you, if you felt a recognition when I mentioned the council, if you've always felt like you're observing life rather than living it, if you carry a sense of responsibility you can't explain, you might be a volunteer too. You might be a consciousness from elsewhere who chose to incarnate during this critical time, who agreed to forget so you could experience humanity from within, who came here to help, to guide, to remind. And if that's true, I want you to know you're not alone. There are thousands of us here, maybe millions, all scattered across the planet, all feeling different and isolated and purposeful, all carrying pieces of the greater plan. And we're starting to remember, starting to wake up, starting to find each other. And together, we're going to help humanity remember they're more than physical beings. Remember they're connected to something vast and beautiful. Remember they're part of a galactic community that's waiting for them to evolve and join. You are seen, you are supported, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. The council is still watching, and they're watching with love, with hope, with absolute faith in humanity's ability to evolve, to awaken, to transcend. You are not broken for feeling different. You are remembering. You are waking up. You are fulfilling your mission just by being here, just by holding your light, just by refusing to give up even when everything feels impossible. He paused, his face luminous with peace and purpose and unshakable knowing. They're still watching, and so are we. Subscribe for more stories of remembering who we really are.